Welcome to First Strike right here on VSiN. I'm your host, Dave Ross. For the next hour, we're going to break down everything from a very intriguing fight night card that we have with Rafael against Rafael Dos Anjos. Going to take on Rafael Fiziev in the main event coming up in 24 hours. Going to have Reed Kuhn joining us here in just a minute. Kevin Iole, Lou Finocchiaro, and our producer extraordinaire, Britton Hess, is going to join us in the last block of this program to round out what should be a fine hour here of First Strike. Let's bring in the aforementioned Reed Kuhn right now. You can follow him on Twitter as I do at Fightnomics. He is the author of a book of the same name, and he has been absolutely on fire with his picks in the last couple weeks. Reed, great to have you back in the program, my friend. Let's just recap very quickly what you saw last week. And boy, oh boy, the models certainly helped you make it for a very profitable Saturday night a week ago.
Yeah, it was a good night. And sometimes you just want to find the right favorites that you can bank on. And then you find that one or two value play guys like Barberina, who you can get at even or plus money that really put you over the edge. And for us, the one that got away, Pedro Munoz, was up on the cards heading into the second round before the eye poke. And man, that would have been a juicy payoff north of 2-1. And, I felt pretty strongly that he had a better than 50-50 chance. So that's a lot of value. The one that got away, I don't know if that fight gets rebooked, but I hope so.
I wonder if that'd be the Sugar Show saying, I don't know if I want to fight Munoz again after what went south there. But again, a no contest in that one, but still a very profitable night for you. Reed, let's get right to the main event here and what the models are showing again. When you got a guy like RDA, I know you got plenty of data points there. Do you have enough on Fiziev? And what do you see in this fight for Fiziev right now over a $2 betting favorite?
Yeah, Fiziev looks pretty strong on paper, and he's someone that I've been backing for a while. But I know you've asked me about the weight class switching and the strength of schedule, and both of those factors actually apply here. And I think they are meaningful because when we line them up, okay, it's an even matchup. Fiziev gets a few advantages here. But when we think about why RDA's significant strikes and accuracy are the way they are, it's because he spent 10 rounds going against guys like Usman and Covington. And those are hard outs at welterweight, let alone for a guy who really naturally belongs at lightweight. So I like him at this weight class. I think he belongs here. And if people are thinking that, you don't normally see me betting on the much older guy, but, is he going to get just knocked out and beaten by a 2-1 favorite like Fiziev? I don't know, man. He has been in the cage and has survived long periods of time with very dangerous fighters. So I think he will have time to work. And I am banking on the fact that he is eventually going to bring in his grappling. His grappling is much more wrestling than it is submissions. So that bodes well for me. I think this takes time to develop. I'm hoping RDA kind of grinds this out. And overall, I'm probably looking for the over here.
And 4.5 right now, minus $1.40 for 4.5 rounds. If you think it's going to go the distance here, that's an intriguing way to go as well, because you mentioned work. And when you think of RDA, that's what I think of, right? This is a worker. This is a grinder. This is not a guy, obviously the Cowboy Cerrone fight, he really got him early and got him out of there back in the day when he was the best in the world at 155 pounds. But you see this is the type of fight, Reed, the model's going to show to go over that 4.5 round total?
Usually my approach here is in a 5-round fight, I'll take a conservative under like 2.5 and throw that in a parlay with one of my favorites where I'm not getting a ton of value. So I agree. The line is close. At 4.5 in a 5-round fight, it doesn't leave much room there. But overall, you can either play it safe and go for the low under, or try to go for a value play much closer to inside the distance or over the distance. I think I'll avoid that 5-round or 4.5 round play, and I'll just stick with the 2.5. Let's
go a little bit deeper down the card. Whenever you have a Nurmagomedov on the card, normally they're going to be favorites. Saeed is a relatively big favorite here, about minus 330. Right now, it's actually going up now to 350 here at DraftKings against Douglas Silva de Andrade here. What do you make of this matchup here with Nurmagomedov? Is this going to be more of the same that we've seen with others before him?
So Nurmagomedov, on paper, this guy is notable because he has the highest significant strikes landed per minute differential. So one of the classic ways to compare two fighters is to just boil them down to a single number and see over under, like, do they tend to land more often or get, more punishment? His differential is the highest of anyone on the card. So this guy is very efficient. He's good at giving out damage and not taking it. And when you're against a guy like Andrade, he has a lot of finishing capability. He's got submissions. He's got striking. I'm actually going to go the complete opposite direction. I want Nurmagomedov to start to grind this out. And he does attempt a lot of takedowns. Hasn't been super successful landing them. He has decent control, but I think he's more likely to initiate contact and maybe even in the clinch. But it's that efficiency. It's that pace and efficiency. He's going to be very busy, and those things score well on the cards. So if I'm thinking like I don't expect a finish here, then who's going to win on the decision? It's going to be the busier guy, the guy that was just much more active and landing punishment where he can, not necessarily anything flashy.
A very interesting fighter on this card is Kennedy Nzechukwu, and I think some people have been disappointed backing him in recent outings. Have seen some of the steam right now go his way here as the fight week has continued on against Carl Roberson. What do you make of Kennedy? Because he's got physical advantages that are clear to see when you look at the metrics here, but sometimes he doesn't always utilize those physical advantages.
Yeah, here's one where we have fighters from opposite weight classes meeting in the middle. You have like a middleweight versus a light or a heavyweight, and then they're like, okay, we'll meet at middleweight. And so when you see them on the traditional tail of the tape, it is pretty striking. Like, one guy is simply way bigger, and he also fought bigger competition. So Nzechukwu, actually, he leapt off the page to me before I even looked at the weight classes and thought, wow, if they're going to get into a striking contest, which is what Roberson traditionally wants, he's had trouble with submission grapplers, they are going to be welcoming partners for each other to just duke this out. But there's a massive size difference. And at that weight class, to have Nzechukwu, who has very accurate striking, especially for someone so big, that's going to be a liability. Roberson has been dropped twice, and he's going to be facing a bigger, longer guy who is much more accurate than Roberson is. And so I don't know if this ends inside the distance. I tend to avoid the upper weight classes. But I definitely like Nzechukwu. I was looking at him at plus 100 early in the week, and then I turned on my computer and was like, wait a minute, oh, now he's the favorite. So I guess I'm not alone. This is not exactly a huge upset call, but he was at the time when he first caught my eye. So I agree with this. I agree with the steam here.
And what catches my eye too is you see the 205-pound limit. That Roberson 2.5 pounds under that limit there. So against a bigger guy, and he's coming in a little bit light in the loafers, if you will, that could be a very interesting matchup if it does stay standing, to your point. Let's talk about Jamie Mullarkey here as a favorite against Michael Johnson. One of my favorite fighters to watch in the UFC has been Michael Johnson throughout the years. Always feel like he's been a guy that's been on the cusp. Those days of getting to a title shot, those days feel like they're clearly behind him. What do you make of the beast in this one? Is there anything left in the tank for Michael Johnson?
I've been up and down on Michael Johnson for a long time. There was a period where I seemed to be backing him a lot, and then sometimes I get disappointed. He's a hit or miss type fighter. He's a veteran. He's been in the game a long time. He's been against some very good talent. So no knock on him at all, but he is getting older here. But Mullarkey, when you look at what fighters on this card have spent the most time wrestling their opponent on the mat, Mullarkey is tied for one of them. Actually, Rafael Dos Anjos is one of them, and Jamie Mullarkey is the other one. So these guys both spend a lot of time just controlling their opponent. And we have seen Michael Johnson get pinned. I know he came from a wrestling background, but lately it doesn't seem to be coming through. He's very hit or miss with his success rate on wrestling in general. So I think Mullarkey kind of drags him into deep water here. I know there's a lot of steam. This is another one where I looked at the line early in the week and was like, okay, great. That's actually a very affordable price. Come in 3 days later and whoa, it just like moved the needle. So again, I'm not alone in this pick. It's a favorite pick, fairly safe pick, but I think that's the difference maker in this fight.
Yeah, 9 years the senior is Michael Johnson these days at 36, with Mullarkey coming in at 27 years young. Chase Sherman on this card here. You always feel like with Chase, is he in the UFC? Is he on the way out? He's going to win a fight here to kind of stay alive and stay relevant in the heavyweight division. What do you make of Chase as a dog against Jared Vanderaa, who's been a guy who's been very disappointing if you've been backing him in his UFC career?
Yeah, this one just looks very like a wash on paper. You have guys that it's barely different in each metric as you go down that line, and one guy has an advantage, the other guy. So when I compare them just in terms of striking metrics, and first of all, like neither guy really has any ground metrics. So we're not going to see one guy suddenly trying to wrestle unless there's this conspiracy theory that Chase Sherman's going to pull off some exotic submission. But honestly, if we're just isolating those striking metrics, I think he has a slightly better than fair chance. And so I do think there's value in the line here on Chase Sherman.
I got about 90 seconds to go. I want to get to a couple of the ladies on this card here. How about Cynthia Calvillo? She's going to be in for a pretty good test against Nina Nunes here. Small favorite on Calvillo. What do you make of this matchup here?
When I get to these matchups, there's several matchups that look very close. And sometimes the right betting advice is to just acknowledge that the market is pretty much spot on and back off. I might have a slight lean here. We'll see where the lines end. I would lean Calvillo, and maybe there's even a little bit of value still in that price, but it's fairly close on paper. There's nothing really to call out there, but I'll agree with the market price on this one.
And very quickly in the last minute, Antonina Shevchenko, of course, the sister of Valentina Shevchenko, the Bullet, the champion, against Courtney Casey here. Casey, plus money here against Antonina. What do you make of this one very quickly?
Similar story as the last fight. This is going to be another very small lean towards the favorite. I'm going to back Shevchenko. And surprisingly, when I looked at the metrics, she too also has a fair amount of time spent controlling opponents on the ground, which is one of my favorite things to look at. You can always bank on a wrestler if they can pull it off. And so in a women's fight, more likely to go the distance, winning those rounds is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Reed, appreciate the time and the information as always, my friend. Trying to look at what you got behind you there. I see some Knob Creek. So have a drink for me, my friend, and we'll catch up again next week. There he is, everybody. Reed Kuhn. Follow him on Twitter at Fightnomics. Don't go anywhere. Going to have Kevin Iole coming up and Lou Finocchiaro in a little bit later on in the hour. And then Britton Hess, our producer extraordinaire, right here for the full hour here of First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. DraftKings Sportsbook is giving you plenty of ways to bet the UFC. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. You're going to be able to bet on more ways than just the main event. DraftKings has great odds on fight lines, total rounds, and futures for MMA events. Eligibility restrictions to apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for the full terms and conditions. We roll on here on First Strike. I am Dave Ross. Always a pleasure to be joined by Kevin Iole. Follow him on Twitter as I do at Kevin I. Kevin, we got a very intriguing card, and I always say you're a really good follow on Twitter, especially during the fights. And I know a lot of your tweets get broadcast during the UFC broadcast, but you can get a really good sense if you're an in-game player as well as these fights go on. I'll be very curious to what you think you're going to see coming up here on this Saturday night. Let's start off right at the top here with Rafael against Rafael, and that's Rafael Dos Anjos, who I think is going to the Hall of Fame when you look at his resume here, plus $1.75 against the up-and-comer here, and Rafael Fiziev at over a $2 betting favorite. You got the young guy still in his 20s against a guy now at 37. Is it about age for you, or do you think RDA still has some greatness left in him?
I do think RDA has a lot still to give. You know, I think it's a bad matchup for him right here in this particular situation. I mean, certainly RDA has the advantage wrestling, and if he gets it to the ground, then it is going to become a different fight, right? But Dave, I look at this fight and I say, I think Fiziev is the guy on the way up. He has one loss in the UFC. That was in his debut, and he got caught with a shot early. He is a guy that I think really is going to be a factor in this lightweight division going forward. And this is a fight that they want to take a look at him. How does he compete against a former champion? And I think he's going to do very well. I think he's going to have an edge on the feet here, and his quickness edge is going to be fantastic. And so I think he pulls this out. I don't think he finishes RDA. He has that ability to finish, but I think it's going to go the distance if I had to guess. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the money and take Fiziev here.
And again, if you like Fiziev by decision, as Kevin does, that's plus money now. So you don't have to lay that $2 price tag at plus $1.40 if Fiziev can get this out in a 5-round non-title. You know, you look at RDA, and Kevin, you know this better than anybody. You look at the resume, and it's a Hall of Fame resume. And that's why I think he's going to the Hall of Fame as a former champion in this division. Obviously, went up to 170, made a run at the title, couldn't quite get there. You know, I was there for the Colby Covington fight, and he just looked too small against the bigger wrestler on that day in Chicago. And I wonder now what style he needs to employ here to get the upset victory, because he can throw hands, ask Cowboy Cerrone, right? But you mentioned the wrestling. Is that the only pathway to victory for RDA to pull the upset, is to grind out potentially a 5-round decision or get a sub?
Well, he's fighting a guy that is a kickboxer and a Muay Thai fighter, right? And so if you get in the clinch, you're going to face the knees with Fiziev. If you're at distance, you got the hands and the feet coming at you. So I think that for his way to win it, I think he's got to dirty box him a little bit, and then I would like to see him level change a lot in the fight. And I think if he does that, it throws Fiziev off a bit. Now Fiziev, you look at his performance against Bobby Green, and you look at that and you say, boy, that guy, he was ready on all fronts there. I think that was Fiziev's best performance in the UFC, Bobby Green. And, can he replicate that? Well, if he's going to become a champion like he wants to, he's going to have to exceed it. But I think RDA's hopes are going to be that, he's not that fighter on this particular night. And I think RDA's just got to confuse him, just fight him, kind of maul him. If they get into clinch, be careful. But I think, you're better off fighting him out in open space as opposed to getting along the cage where, that's where he's going to be more comfortable.
Yeah, that's the thing about mixed martial arts here. We're talking about a true mixed martial artist. When you look at somebody like RDA, can beat you many different ways. It'll be very interesting to see what type of tactic he tries to employ on Saturday night. Let's go down the card a little bit because there are some intriguing matchups that you've identified for sure, Kevin. And the Antonina Shevchenko one is certainly a matchup that gets my attention. Of course, this is the sister of the Bullet, Valentina Shevchenko, against the cast iron Courtney Casey. She's as tough as they come here. Right now, you're getting plus money on Casey here. Is there value in that player? Do you think Shevchenko shines in this outing on this time around? Because we've been waiting for her to really make her mark. Not quite like her sister, but maybe to step up and show and get a big time win. This might be her best one if she got it.
Well, Shevchenko, Dave, has fought far better opposition. She's coming off a loss to Casey O'Neill, as an example. Casey O'Neill is a really bright prospect, going to be in championship contention before very long. So Shevchenko has fought the better opposition here. I'm going to take a flyer and go ahead and go with Courtney Casey, though. They both need this win. Shevchenko is now 37. Casey is 35. So I know that neither one of them has a lot of time to get it done, right? They have to get it done soon or they're going to be out of here. And I just have this feeling that Courtney Casey is going to pull this off. I think that she's a bulldog type of fighter anyways. And in the situation she's in, she's coming off back-to-back losses. She needs to win in the worst way. And she's fighting somebody who has a name but is maybe not as talented as some of the other contenders she could have drawn here. But I think it's a good spot for her. I like her in this fight, and I'll take the plus money on this one. I'm
right there with you on that one, Kevin. Stylistically, what do you think you're going to see? You look at the props market there, and you can get KO, TKO, or DQ 4-1 for Antonina, 10-1 for Casey. You expect Casey, if she's going to get this upset, to take it down to the ground. And I think that's why you see here fight to go the distance. You got to lay $2 for that 3-round prop. Do you think this is a fight that goes all 15 minutes?
I do, but I would like to just take the plus money here and take my chance with Casey winning this fight.
Yeah, I think that's the smarter way to go here is take that plus money instead of laying the $2 that it goes all 3 rounds. When Cynthia Calvillo came into the UFC, Kevin, I just was like her mean streak. I loved it, and I thought, boy, she's just going to be a tough out. I don't care if it's at 115, 125, or where she ends up. Now I'm going to take on Nina Nunes here, and Calvillo is still a small favorite here, minus about $1.40 I'm seeing, but it hasn't been all sunshine and roses for Calvillo here in the UFC. What do you make of this outing here? She's 36, and she's actually the younger fighter in this matchup.
I think this is a similar matchup to the one we just talked about, Casey and Shevchenko. Both fighters are kind of, hit some hard times. They need a win. I think, Nunes would need the win a little bit more than Calvillo would, to be honest with you. But I think this is going to be a brawl. I really do. I think these two are going to go at it. You're going to see a lot of scrambles in this fight, up and down, going back and forth. And I think that's one that suits Nina Nunes. I like Nina in this fight. I will take her to win. I think it goes the distance here. I don't think either one has that kind of power that's going to really hurt the other one unless, somebody lands something like a knee or a kick, kick to the head, which I don't foresee coming. So I think this goes the distance. So I like it going the distance. I also like the side here, and I'll go with Nina Nunes. Yeah, and you're going to get much better value if you like Nunes by decision in that 3-round potential matchup there. Kind of think the same thing, that fight should go to a decision. And once you get there to the judges, you never know what you're going to see. Again, this is, a $2 betting favor that it does go the decision. So if you like Nunes as the dog,
to win via decision, plus 215. So it gets even juiced up a little bit more than just the plus $1.20 to win the fight outright. Let's talk about Kennedy and Chuck Wu against Carl Roberson here. Roberson pretty evenly price tagged here. Roberson about plus $1.10 and Chuck Wu here minus $1.30. What do you make of Kennedy in this spot as the small favorite?
You know, he's been disappointing to me, right? I thought when he came into the UFC that he was a guy where you were going to see big things from, and we haven't seen that to my and he hesitates to pull the trigger the way I look at it, you know. And so when you're a striker and you struggle to pull the trigger, you're going to be in trouble. I think that the grappling and ground edge here goes to Roberson, who it should be said is also been a little bit disappointing, especially recently. But I think there's a big advantage on the ground that goes toward Roberson. So I'm going to go ahead and I guess it's an underdog day here. I'm going to go ahead and take Roberson in this one to win.
Yeah, small dog there, plus $1.10. Again, you see the height advantage that Nchukwu has, and he's got a big, right, and a huge reach advantage here with 9 inches. But you're right, for a guy that has those physical traits that should give him a distinct advantage, you can understand why it's priced to where it is, because he has not always pulled the trigger, to your point there. So again, plus 240 if you like Nchukwu to get it done via KO, TK, or DQ, but he's got to throw those hands and keep it at length in order for that to get done. If not, I'm with you, Kevin. It looks like the dog, we're going to have a live dog scenario in this one at plus $1.10. Very quickly in the final minute and a half that we have here with Kevin Iole, I've got to ask you about Michael Johnson, one of my favorite fighters to watch in the UFC here over the last decade. Of course, I'm old, so I remember him with the Black Zillions here and still getting it done. A solid underdog here against Jamie Malarkey. What do you make here? Is this a live dog play for you as well with Michael Johnson?
I'll tell you what, Michael Johnson, physical skills are still very high up there. Like, you got to love what he does, with his physical skills. Fast hands, quick feet. He thinks on his feet very well. You know, Michael Johnson tends to make a mistake every fight. I would lay off this fight because of that, because I think this I could see this fight being a fight. Johnson's winning the fight and then makes a mistake and gets finished, right? And that's what I hate, because you handicap it right, you have the right side, and then bingo, something happens, late in the fight and you lose. So I stay off it. But if I were to play this particular fight, I like the physical skills with Michael Johnson.
Right. I hear you loud and clearly on that. Kevin, hey, really appreciate the time and the information as always. Again, follow Kevin at Kevin I on Twitter. Kevin, appreciate your insight again here on First Strike.
Thanks, Dave. See ya.
There he is, everybody, Kevin Iole. When we come back, Lou Finocchiaro is going to join the program, break down everything the way Lou sees it when you come back with us right here on First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you thought there was a sports betting offseason, think again. Our VSiN sports betting experts are working 24/7 to keep you informed on every sport on the schedule. The over pays the same for a baseball game or a football championship, and our team grinds year-round to help improve your betting IQ on every sport. We have experts in baseball, tennis, soccer, golf, NASCAR, and horse racing. Turn this offseason into a winning season and start your free trial today at vsin.com/subscribe.
The VSiN Summer Special is here. For only $19, you get everything VSiN has to offer from now to the end of July. Sign up today. You're going to get VSiN's daily best bets, including Adam Burke's MLB daily best bets, NFL preseason coverage, premium articles on golf, UFC, and NASCAR. So if you want that full VSiN experience, which features a daily best bets email, every edition of Point Spread Weekly, use of our betting tools, and a live video stream whenever you want it. The cost is only $19 to be a subscriber through July 31st. So sign up now at vsin.com/summer. We continue with First Strike right here on VSiN. Always a pleasure to be joined by Lou Finocchiaro. Right now, you can follow him on Twitter as I do at Gamblue, and also is the host of the Bout Business podcast. Lou, welcome back to the program. And before we dive into this card here, I do want to talk about the Bout Business podcast. When people listen each and every week on a Friday, what are they going to get?
Well, Dave, thanks for having me on. And the Bout Business podcast is 16 to 18 minutes of simply 4 to 6 releases for each UFC card. We monitor our results, keep tabs along the way. Last week, as you know, favorites went 9-2-1, and we were still able to just hit the Mason-Dixon and not really lose any cheese. I consider that a positive day. And now we're pointing ahead towards this week. You can get the Bout Business podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and thanks for mentioning that.
Absolutely, Lou. I'm right there with you. It was a day for the favorites a week ago, which was not great for me at the end, but about breaking even there with some of the earlier fights on the undercard that came through. Let's talk about maybe some picks that you see some opportunity for some value this week. Let's start off with the co-main event here. Caio Borralho going to take on Armen Petrosyan here. Petrosyan plus $1.90 on the comeback against Caio, who's minus 225. What do you make of this big-time matchup?
Boy, first of all, I think this will be the best fight on the card.
Agreed.
And what we also have for all three of the main events is Russia versus Brazil, a most hated, a most competitive fighting controversy between those two countries, and competition, I should say. Mm-hmm. In this one, Petrosyan, bigger, longer, taller. He's just a year or so older, and though he's a little taller, he doesn't have the reach advantage. He's a kickboxer by trade, and really, I think the formula to try and beat Petrosyan is to get him on the ground. Now, he beat a monster in Greg Rodriguez in his debut, and that's something that has to be noticed. This guy is no slouch. That said, Borralho, he opened minus 145, and for any of the people that jumped him early, fortunately, of the 3 or 4 major line moves on this card, I did get an early taste of Borralho, but now as he is ballooned from 145 to 240, that would be a very difficult thing for me to try and recommend for others to do when I'm holding a different kind of a position on him. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'm getting tempted to almost go the other way, because this Petrosyan is no slouch, and he's going to be tough to take down. I like the over in the fight. I like the fight starts round 3 minus 120, and I would invite anyone that is new and learning mixed martial arts to grab hold of this fight. It's going to be a killer. That's
great advice there. Again, the over right now, minus $1.75 for a round and a half. But as Lou said, you can get that to start round 3 and shorten that number down to minus $1.20. Very quickly, you mentioned the stylistic nature of this matchup here. When you do have, Russia against Brazil, and you know stylistically, normally that means that, the Russian fighter is going to try to get this fight down to the ground. Brazilian fighters might want to do the same, though, with BJJ. You mentioned the 4-inch reach advantage here for Caio. Do you think he might be more apt to keep it standing then with that reach advantage, or eventually say, I got to do what I do best and try to get this fight down on the mat?
It's my belief that he'll, because of his speed and athleticism, he's not afraid to fight Armen anywhere this fight goes, and it's going to start on the feet. Mm-hmm. However, his real advantage is going to occur on the ground. I think once he tastes this kid's power, he'll decide quickly, and his corner will help him to quit screwing around, get this thing to the ground, and inflict your advantage. And I believe that's the path for Borralho. And it's what's interesting in this one, Dave, is where you were going is usually it's the Russian with the Sambo vice grip grappling skills and the Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist that's more well-rounded. In this case, that's exactly what we have in Borralho, the more well-rounded fighter, but Petrosyan, not typically a Russian grappler, a Russian Muay Thai specialist. So this changes this perspective a little bit, as it does in the main event.
No question about it. So again, maybe to Lou's point, if you like the over and potentially get a win via decision, you can get plus money there on Caio at plus $1.20 if you don't want to lay that big juiced up number that Lou was alluding to as it's ballooned up from minus $1.40, $1.45. Let's get to that main event, Lou, that you're referring to here with the two Rafaels, and Rafael against Rafael. RDA back in there, a solid underdog here. He like historically been a pretty good ticket, certainly as a dog against Rafael Fiziev in this one. Fiziev right now, minus 205. Stylistically, what do you expect to see? Because we know RDA can do it many different ways. He is getting up there in age now at 37 against the 29-year-old here in Fiziev at 11-1. What do you make of this number, and is it too ballooned for you, over $2 for the favorite?
It is. I think Fiziev represents a new, young, exciting mixed martial artist. That said, as flamboyant and explosive and precise as his striking and kicks are, and he's, again, a Kazahstani, we got to think he's got some wrestling skill, but we haven't seen it in the UFC, and I haven't seen it in any of his fights. And what we know from Dos Anjos is, here's a guy that's fought at 155 and 170, always the smaller guy, and he's fought world-class opponents, and he's had world-class results, an ex-champion at 155. I think there's enough in Dos Anjos' arsenal to overlook the 37 years and my belief is that he's going to have to get Fiziev. Maybe it doesn't come in the first round, but he's going to have to get him to the ground, and I think he will get him to the ground. And I think anything Dos Anjos plus 170 or better is a really good position, and he's getting well better than plus 170 right now.
No question about it. And if you think he can get a sub, that's 8-1 if he wins by decision for the challenger, plus 350, maybe even a better number there than the what you're seeing now, about plus $1.75. Let's get to one other fight that I know you've got circled here in the last couple of minutes that we have, Lou. Cody Brundage, plus 115 against Tracion Gore. Gore right now minus $1.35 in this potential 3-round matchup. What do you make of this one?
This can be an interesting fight. Brundage's big wrestling background, and he showed a ton in his last victory over Lungiambula, where he was really getting the break speed off of him on the feet. And he showed toughness, perseverance, and ended up winning the fight. In this kid, Gore, you got a really flashy, athletic kid, but he's young. He isn't really at a home with a gym. He's been bouncing around. He was at 2 of them here in Phoenix. And while he's speedy and quick and precise, he's also mouthy and cocky and right. And I really think Brundage, the wrestler, the bigger guy, the more structured man, is going to eventually get a hold of Gore and get him down. And I think this is a great underdog opportunity.
Got a minute to go here with Lou Finocchiaro. Follow him on Twitter as I do at GamLou. Lou, I'll give you the choice is yours. Dealer's choice here. When you look at the rest of the card, I see some big names up there with Cynthia Calvillo against Nina Nunes in this one. Michael Johnson, I'm so old, I remember him as a member of the Black Zillions against Jamie Malarkey. Is there another fight on this card that you really like from a value standpoint?
Yeah, there's a handful of them, but one that I would take you to is the first fight of the night. This Ronnie Lawrence comes in. He opens minus 115, and the Russian, I'll try and pronounce his name, Kakramanov, pretty much a pick. The steams come in on Lawrence. The other kid's a little bit larger, and I like his wrestling background. I also like that he might have been in with just at least the same kind of competition or better. I'm going to go against the early money and all the people playing the market, and I'm going to go with the Kakramanov. Excuse the pronunciation of his last name. Currently, 115, 120 as an underdog?
Yeah, you can still get him out there. It's starting to get shorted up at some places, but I like where your head's at there, Lou. That is for sure. Once again, always appreciate Lou Finocchiaro joining the program here. Follow him at GamLou and check out the Bout Business podcast. When we come back, producer extraordinaire Britton Hess on the other side. First Strike rolls on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This summer, the VSiN experts have betting coverage and insights you need to cash in on every sport. And right now, for a limited time, you can get access to everything we have to offer for only $19. Our experts are looking at football futures, along with daily coverage of baseball, tennis, soccer, UFC, and golf. And of course, you'll get our daily best bet emails, 24/7 video streaming, and betting splits on VSiN.com. Don't wait, go to VSiN.com/summer to sign up today and save.
Want more betting insights to give you an edge? Well, check out VSiN's Best Bets podcast. You can listen to daily sports betting highlights from the entire 24/7 stream of VSiN experts, tracking line moves, odds, props, wins, losses, bad beats from sportsbooks in Vegas and across the entire country. So download the VSiN Best Bets podcast now at VSiN.com/podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Back here on First Strike, and look who it is, America. It is our producer extraordinaire, Britton Hess, back on the program. Britton, great to have you back on. You and I talked on Tuesday on First Strike, First Look. Shameless plug. Check it out wherever you get your podcast. And I think one of the exercises we like to do on a Tuesday is try to track line movement. So we try to find those good numbers and the good value that maybe on Tuesday you can find that you might not get here as we talk on a Friday and we approach Saturday's fight night. I'm very curious. Is there anything that you've seen in the last 3 days that's really gotten your attention?
Well, since we last spoke on Tuesday, the Kennedy Nchukwu versus Carl Robertson line, the favorite is flipped there. There's been a little bit of back and forth all week, but I think that flip is telling. And I know that Robertson weighed in underweight today. It's like light heavyweight, 205-pound fight. You can weigh up to 206. He weighed in at 202. Oh. So I think that might be some people like, all right, he's already shorter because Nchukwu was already 6'6", and he's underweight. So it's going to be tough going. Both these guys are coming off of several losses. Like Kennedy's got 2 in a row, and Robertson has 3 in a row. So I think it might be an eliminator, aka win, get a new contract, lose, find a new organization. And I kind of, just as far as what I like Nchukwu as a small favorite. I liked him as a dog more. I think that he's just fought more good guys, and he's won some wars, he's lost some wars, but he's a hard out, and I think he's got more going for him than Robertson.
There's something to talk about with Kevin Iole earlier in the program here on First Strike, and that is when you look at the physical advantages that Nchukwu has, I mean, they're as clear as day to spot. And what gives Kevin pause in a fight like this is that he doesn't always he doesn't utilize it. Right. And we've seen this in fights past where sometimes as a bettor or a handicapper, you want to pull your hair out going, you've got X advantage, but you don't use it. When you're 6'5", you have a 9-inch reach advantage. He's got to keep the fight standing. If he does, he can keep him at the end of his jab, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. If his jab is landing, Carl is not going to be able to do anything.
No.
It's too far. It's like what we saw with Izzy a little bit, last week is just Jared Kennedy couldn't get close. It's really something to see when there's a guy that actually knows how to use their weapons to their full advantage. And Nchukwu's kind of new to the sport still, so he could still get there. He had that crazy second round knockout of Carlos Ulberg when he was getting destroyed, so that's why I know he's a tough guy.
Right.
But yeah, I like Nchukwu in this spot. Like, I think that there's going to be more steam on this by the time the fight goes off tomorrow. And
again, the way Ulberg's on a roll now, it looks like even more of an impressive win in a fight he was clearly losing at the time that he got the stoppage. We mentioned the steam a little bit and how it's changed a little bit since our conversation on Tuesday in the co-main event here with Caio Borralho against Armen Petrosyan here. Is this an intriguing fight in the line movement as the week's gone on? Because it has fluctuated a little bit.
Yeah, well, let me plug VSiN.com/odds/MMA to get all the sportsbook odds comparison, and you can see what the consensus opening lines were.
Yep.
So the opening lines on this fight had Borralho as a -140 favorite. Obviously, that shot up to -230. But on Tuesday when we spoke, it was even higher, and Petrosyan was over a $2 dog. It was +205, I believe, when we spoke. And I said, I don't think that this can last. I think that these guys, there's not enough separating them. It reminds us of the Fight Night card a couple weeks back when Gamrot fought.
Absolutely.
And it's like these guys, they both have different advantages. They're both really good, and they're both very young in their UFC careers. Even more so young than the guys we saw a couple weeks ago, Sarukian and Gamrot. So I think that it's so much more of a coin flip than what these odds are indicating. Sure, Borralho could get an early finish, but Petrosyan can't too. 6 out of 7 wins, KOs.
Absolutely. And this is a point that we try to bring to you each and every week on First Strike, and certainly on First Look. If we have a fight, and right now juiced heavily to the over round and a half, -$1.75, we're seeing out there at DraftKings. So if you have a fight that to go the distance, yes, you can get plus money, which is intriguing at plus $1.40, right? But if we do have a fight that we think might end up on the cards, take that for what it is, because the judging, even though there's new emphasis on what the current scoring system is, Britton, you and I both know we've been on the right side and the wrong side of some of these. Sometimes it gets really dicey what we think the judges are going to see.
Yeah, well, and I had a conversation off the show with our friend Lou Finocchiaro, and he was saying that these scoring rules were put in place in 2017.
That's right.
But we haven't seen them being implemented until like the last 12 months.
They've been on the books for a long time.
Yeah. But the emphasis has changed. And going back to this co-main event, if it looks like it's going to go, at least get 2-3 rounds deep, you got to lean with the striker, which is Petrosyan. He relies on striking much more than Borralho does. So, and we know they're emphasizing head strikes. Just getting a takedown and not doing anything with it doesn't mean anything. Clinch, leaning against him doesn't mean anything. Literally, you got to hit the guy in the face to win a fight in the UFC right now.
No question about it. And again, this is another fight where you look at the dimensions of the fighters and you go, well, Borralho's got the advantages. Taller, bigger, he's got the reach advantage. That's not the style that he wants to fight against Petrosyan. So take that again into your handicapping here before you lay those prices as an over $2 betting favorite.
And I will say, having the reach advantage is great for the jab, but the thing is Petrosian's a kickboxer. We don't have his leg reach up on the screen, so you might want to consider that because he is the taller guy. So unless maybe he's got like a deceptively long torso and his legs are short.
Yep.
But I don't think so. I think that he's going to be able to kick from the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking with our producer extraordinaire, Britton Hess here. And Britton, let's go to the main event here with RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos against Rafael Fiziev. And I feel like just talking to our experts here, you can understand why the respect level is out there for what I think is a future Hall of Famer in RDA against a guy that's an up-and-comer. And Fiziev's 29 years of age, and he feels like he's coming into his own as a mixed martial artist. Give me the pathways that you see potentially for victory, because for RDA, you would assume it's I got to get this fight down to the ground, utilize my wrestling, and at 155 pounds, I don't feel like the smaller man, which I certainly felt like at 170.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm excited to see is him. I love watching him fight at 155. It's just it's just usually not a good story when someone is going up a weight that has a champion pedigree. Sometimes guys who aren't finding their killing themselves to cut. Right. It works when they go up and they, actually find a healthy weight to perform at. But when a guy's a champion at one weight class, then goes up later, it doesn't necessarily work very well, as we've seen multiple times. We saw when McGregor tried to fight at 170, when Izzy tried to fight at 205, when Max tried to fight at 155. So I'm happy to see RDA at 155 here. I do think that the path to victory, if it gets to the ground, he'll have a decided advantage. But, he also is a great striker, especially when people doubt his ability, when people kind of just overlook it and they're like, oh, yeah, you know what, he's just going to try to wrestle me. I'll have a huge advantage on our feet. But, the guy's got 5 knockouts. He's got power. He's got 10 submissions. So, that's even more impressive. But I think that is definitely his best path to victory would be wrestling. But I think, I respect Fiziev because he's a young up-and-comer, but he's not overly cocky. He's been in some wars.
Yeah.
But he seems respectful. He doesn't take opponents lightly, and I don't think he's going to take in a former champ lightly.
No, and this is one, if you're Fiziev, you look at it and you go, okay, I do have to have some caution when I'm going up against a guy who's so dangerous as a true mixed martial artist as RDA is. You look at the price tag here at DraftKings for it to go to the distance, you got to lay $1.50 here. Would you rather be more apt to play something inside of going to the distance here, or do you think this is one that's going to hit the cards?
Yeah, I think that RDA has been in 26 decision fights, win and loss combined. So he's been there a lot. Fiziev has been there. Fiziev hasn't even had that many pro fights.
Right.
The amount of decisions that Dos Anjos has been in. So we could see it going there, but it's such a tough thing to do when you're in your first 5-round fight. And again, I'm keep on referring back to this Gamrot Tsarukyan fight from a few weeks back, but it was clear that one of those guys was experienced in 5-round fights, and that was Gamrot, and he ended up winning. Because he was able to put pressure into the late rounds. And Tsarukyan had not been in that situation before, so it paid dividends. The experience cannot be underrated. That said, Fiziev does have a lot of KOs. He is flashy, and RDA, has been KO'd 3 times in his career, and he's 37. Think about last week, the Barberina Lawler fight.
What a great fight, but at the end, your chin starts to go a little bit like it did for Robbie Lawler.
I mean, when it was just technique and, ability, it was, if the chin wasn't a factor, Robbie was running away with that fight. But Barberina just made it dirty and said, okay, we're going to each land 10 punches right now. I feel like I'll be able to make it and you won't. And that's what happened.
Got about a minute to go here, Britton. Give me Britton's bomb out there. Do you have maybe a really sharp pick that you like and maybe combine it with something else? Is there anything on the card that really stands out to you?
Okay, so my 2 favorite bets are Chase Sherman to win. Or not, I'm sorry. Jared Vanderaa to beat Chase Sherman. That's -$2, so you can parlay with something if you want. But I would also not be surprised if that goes inside the distance, because both these guys, I don't know this officially, but I'm assuming that they're both fighting for a contract. Both these guys have plenty of losses in the octagon.
Yes.
And they're not going to be in the organization for long. This is already Chase Sherman's 2nd stint, and he's 1-4 in this stint with 4 losses in a row. I think that, reach, size, and Jared Vanderaa has a much more diverse skill set. Chase Sherman's an old school brawler. So I think Jared Vanderaa is worth taking. Jared Vanderaa win by finish +110. Great bet if you ask me.
Yeah, and again, I'm kind of right there with you. I don't see this one going the distance, hence the plus money at +$1.65. 2 guys, yeah, it's not official, but you're fighting for your UFC contract to get a win and stick around and get another payday in the organization. Britton, really appreciate the time and the information as always, my friend. Do a great job on the show.
All right.
I want to thank Reed Kuhn, Kevin Iole, and Lou Finocchiaro. Enjoy the fights, everybody. We'll see you next week on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.